The crimson dust swirled around Elena Rhea's boots as she stood at the edge of Haven's observation deck. Through the reinforced, transparent dome, Earth's scarred surface stretched before her, once green valleys now striped with the metallic gleam of Council extraction rigs, skeletal surveillance towers, jutting like thorns from the landscape. In the distance, a Council propaganda broadcast blared from hijacked satellites, the alien voice detached and cold. "The Galactic Protectorate ensures prosperity through order." Elena scoffed. 10 years of Council protection had left Earth a husk. The trade agreements forced upon humanity after first contact had never been agreements at all, merely the polite fiction cloaking their subjugation. She adjusted the resistance armband on her sleeve, the worn fabric a stark reminder of her journey from Council liaison to commander of Earth's last hope. "Commander," a voice called from behind her. "The transmission from Mars is coming through." Elena nodded, her expression hardening as she turned away from the view. The underground bunker of Haven bustled with activity. Resistance fighters moving with purpose through corridors lined with remnants of human culture, faded flags, digital libraries preserved on isolated networks, photographs of Earth before the Council's arrival. These fragments of identity were all that remained of humanity's independence. "Put it on the main screen," she ordered, stepping into the command center. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing the haggard face of Captain Loke Gunner, commander of the Martian colony. His usual composed demeanor had crumbled, deep shadows lined his eyes, and his voice cracked as he spoke. "Elena, it's worse than we feared. The Council's peacekeeping envoy has quarantined the entire northern sector. 50,000 civilians sealed off. They claim it's to contain the outbreak. But they've cut off all supply lines. No food, no medicine." Elena's fingers dug into her palms. "How long can they survive?" "A week. Maybe less." Gunner's voice dropped. "Your brother's hydroponics facility is in the quarantine zone. He's trying to stretch their supplies. But..." The words struck like physical blows. Elena's younger brother, Michael, had moved to Mars 5 years ago to establish hydroponic systems that could feed the colony independently of Council rations. His work had been a quiet form of resistance, one the Council had evidently noticed. "We've sent official appeals through every diplomatic channel," Gunner continued. "The Council representatives say they're processing our concerns." Elena turned away from the screen, her mind racing. 10 years of playing by the rules, of measured resistance, of covert sabotage, of diplomatic posturing. And what had it gained them? Earth remained under the Council's boot, and now Mars would watch thousands starve while bureaucrats processed concerns. "No more," she said, her voice quiet but steel-edged. "Commander?" Elena turned back to face not just the screen, but the entire command center. The dozen resistance leaders present fell silent, sensing the shift in her stance. No more covert operations, no more playing nice. The Galaxy Council pushed too far, and now humanity is done being their compliant victim. Rahim Abbas, her second-in-command, stepped forward. The tactical officer's perpetually worried expression deepened. "Elena, what are you suggesting?" "Open defiance, full-scale resistance." Her eyes swept the room. "They've left us no choice. We strike the Council where it hurts. Their orbital control systems." A murmur rippled through the command center, part shock, part relief, as if everyone had been waiting for this moment but feared its arrival. "Captain Gunner," Elena addressed the Martian commander, "hold out as long as you can. Help is coming, not in the form of appeals, but action." After the transmission ended, Rahim pulled Elena aside, his voice low and urgent. "This changes everything. The Council's reprisal will be swift and merciless." "They're already merciless," Elena replied. "At least now we'll give them reason to fear us." As the command center erupted into activity, battle plans formed, Dormant cells activated. Encrypted messages sent to resistance factions scattered throughout the solar system. Elena retreated to her private quarters. There, she opened a small metal box containing her few personal possessions. A photograph of Michael at his hydroponics graduation, a commendation medal from her days as a council liaison, and a small vial of earth soil collected before the extraction rigs had poisoned the ground. She set aside the medal with finality. The time for accommodation had passed. Humanity would now play by the council's rules, ruthless, uncompromising, and without mercy. 3 days later, the first strike of humanity's open rebellion crippled the council's primary communications network. Dr. Sophia Nakamura, Haven's lead engineer, had developed a virus that could penetrate the council's supposedly impenetrable security protocols. The infection spread from satellite to satellite, overloading systems and creating cascading failures across half the solar system. Elena watched from Haven's command center as the tactical display showed council communication nodes blinking out one by one. First Earth's orbital network, then the relay stations around Venus, until the blackout reached Mars. For the first time in a decade, the council's watchful eye had been blinded. "It worked," Nakamura whispered, disbelief and pride mingling in her voice as she stared at the display. "They can't see us anymore." "How long until they restore communications?" Elena asked. 3 days, minimum. Their backup systems will try to compensate, but they'll be operating at 20% capacity at best. Elena nodded, satisfaction warming her chest, even as she prepared for what would come next. "Then we have 3 days to coordinate with every resistance cell in the system before the council realizes what hit them." Not everyone celebrated this first victory. Within hours, representatives from 3 Earth-based colonies, those still dependent on council supply lines, arrived at Haven demanding explanations. "You've doomed us all," accused Governor Williams of the Eastern Alliance. His face flushed with anger as he confronted Elena in the council chamber. "The council will retaliate, and civilians will suffer." "Civilians are already suffering," Elena countered, standing her ground. 50,000 on Mars are being starved as we speak. "So you'll sacrifice millions more?" Williams shot back. "This isn't resistance, it's suicide." The argument raged for hours, fracturing along old lines of privilege and desperation. Communities less damaged by council extraction were reluctant to risk what little autonomy they retained, while those already ravaged saw nothing left to lose. Rahim watched the debate with growing concern. When the governors finally departed, some pledging support, others threatening to reveal Haven's location to the council, he found Elena alone in the strategy room. "This is just the beginning of our problems," he said, his voice heavy. "We're not just fighting the council now. We're fighting ourselves." Elena studied the map before her, the scattered dots representing human settlements across the solar system. Unity through shared purpose has always been humanity's strength. We just need to remind everyone what we're fighting for. The council's response came more swiftly than even Elena had anticipated. Just 18 hours after the communications blackout, high-orbit laser platforms repositioned themselves above Earth's major cities. Without warning or declaration, precision beams sliced through clouds, atmosphere, and ultimately, human structures. The Eastern Alliance capital, Toronto Dome, was the first to fall. The same Governor Williams who had opposed Elena's rebellion died alongside thousands of citizens as the environmental shield collapsed under sustained fire. Similar reports flooded in from Beijing Arcology, New Lagos, and the Sydney Basin, strategic targets, not indiscriminate destruction. But the message was clear: defy the council, and humans would die. The attack unified humanity in a way Elena's words never could. Colonies that had hesitated now pledged ships, weapons, and personnel to the resistance. The Mars Council, led by Captain Gunner, formally declared independence from Galaxy Council rule. The Titan and Jovian mining colonies, long exploited for resources, commandeered their transport vessels and converted them to warships. In the aftermath of the orbital strikes, Elena addressed the solar system through pirated communication channels, her message broadcasting on every resistance frequency. Today, the Galaxy Council showed their true face. They claim to bring order, prosperity, and peace, yet they answer our defiance with death. They have calculated that fear will drive us back into submission. Her voice strengthened. They have calculated wrong. Humanity will no longer bow to tyranny dressed as benevolence. We will fight with everything we have, not just for those we've lost, but for those who will come after us. The Council pushed too far, and now we push back. As the message spread, the disparate resistance cells coalesced into something more formidable, a coordinated armada. Ships arrived at designated rendezvous points, crews united by purpose, if not experience. Former miners from Jupiter's moons brought ships designed to withstand the gas giant's punishing radiation. Martian pilots, accustomed to precision flying in the colony's narrow canyons, commanded retrofitted atmospheric skimmers. Earth contributed what it could, outdated military vessels salvaged and hidden before the Council's arrival, now crewed by a generation who had never known freedom. Aboard the command ship, a repurposed Council frigate captured years earlier and renamed Defiance, Elena gathered her war council. The holographic table displayed their combined fleet, 117 vessels of varying sizes and capabilities. A fraction of the Council's military might, but more than humanity, had marshaled in a decade. "We can't match them ship for ship," Rahim observed, studying the display with the critical eye of a tactical officer. "If we engage in conventional space warfare, we'll be obliterated." "Then we don't fight conventionally," Elena replied. The Council relies on 3 primary orbital weapons platforms to maintain control of Earth and Mars. Without those platforms, their fleet would need to be recalled from the outer system for defensive operations. Captain Gunner, now representing the Martian contingent, leaned forward. "You're suggesting a simultaneous strike on all 3 platforms?" "Operation Reckoning," Elena confirmed, manipulating the holographic display to highlight the orbital structures. 3 strike teams, 3 targets. 1 objective: disable the Council's ability to rain fire on our colonies. The War Council fell silent, absorbing the audacity of the plan. These platforms were the most heavily defended Council assets in the inner system, each protected by defensive arrays and patrol squadrons. "How do we approach undetected?" asked Admiral Chen from the Jovian contingent. "Their sensor networks will spot our fleet long before we're in striking range." Elena nodded to Dr. Nakamura, who stepped forward. "We've adapted the virus that disrupted their communications. This version will create sensor ghosts, false readings that will scatter their defensive response." The planning continued through Earth's night cycle, each detail dissected, each contingency addressed. When dawn broke over Haven's hidden entrance, Operation Reckoning had taken shape. The combined fleet would split into 3 battle groups. Elena would lead the assault on the primary platform above Earth. Gunner would target the Mars orbital station, and Admiral Chen would strike the relay platform at the Lagrange point between worlds. As the Council dispersed to prepare their forces, Rahim remained behind with Elena. "You're taking command of the Earth strike personally," he noted. Not quite a question. Elena nodded. "Someone needs to—" "Someone, yes. Not necessarily you." Rahim's voice softened. "Elena, you've become the symbol of this rebellion. If you fall—" "Then someone else will carry on," she interrupted. "No one is irreplaceable, Rahim. Not even me." He studied her face, reading the determination there. "This is about Michael, isn't it? You're not just fighting for humanity. You're fighting for your brother." Elena turned away, ostensibly to study the battle plans, but primarily to hide the emotion that threatened to crack her composed exterior. Every person fighting has someone they're trying to save. Michael, your sister on Titan, Dr. Nakamura's parents in New Lagos. Personal stakes don't diminish the cause. They strengthen it. Rahim placed a hand on her shoulder. Just promise me you'll remember, there's a difference between necessary risks and needless sacrifice. She covered his hand with her own briefly. I promise to bring as many of our people home as possible. That's all I can offer. 2 days later, the largest human fleet assembled in the post-Council era departed from the shadow of Jupiter's moon Callisto. Ships launched in staggered formations to minimize detection, their courses plotted to appear as routine transport movements until the final approach. Aboard the Defiance, Elena addressed the combined crews, her voice steady, despite the weight of what they were about to attempt. Today we strike not just for vengeance, but for the future. Every council tower we dismantle creates space for humanity to rebuild. Every system we reclaim returns resources to those from whom they were stolen. She paused, meeting the eyes of those gathered in the ship's hold. Some of us won't return from this mission. Let those sacrifices mean something. Let history remember this as the day humanity stopped asking for its freedom and took it instead. The journey to the inner system took 30 hours. 30 hours of tension, final preparations, and the quiet contemplation that precedes battle. Elena spent much of this time alone in her quarters, reviewing tactical displays and contingency plans until Rahim insisted she rest. A commander with clouded judgment endangers everyone, he reminded her. She conceded reluctantly, closing her eyes, but finding no respite in sleep. Instead, memories surfaced. Michael teaching her to play chess when they were children. Her first assignment as a council liaison, believing naively that she could influence policy from within. The gradual realization that humanity had been relegated to second-class status in its own solar system. The day she joined the resistance, trading diplomatic protocols for guerrilla tactics. Each memory reinforced her resolve. Each reinforced what they were fighting for. The alarm signaling their approach to Earth orbit woke her from this half-sleep. On the bridge, the tactical display showed their battle group had successfully navigated the outer sensor perimeter. Dr. Nakamura's virus had worked. The Council's defense grid was registering their ships as authorized transports. How long until they realize we're not what we appear to be? Elena asked, taking her position at the command station. Minutes at most, Nakamura replied. The virus creates convincing ghost signals, but once we deviate from standard approach vectors, they'll know. Elena nodded. Then we make those minutes count. All ships, prepare to break formation on my mark. Weapons hot, shields at maximum. The tension on the bridge crystallized as the massive orbital platform came into view. A cross-shaped structure bristling with weapon emplacements, its central hub pulsing with the energy that powered its devastating lasers. Around it patrolled council frigates, their sleek, predatory forms a stark contrast to the hodgepodge human fleet. 3 minutes to optimal firing range, Rahim reported. They're hailing us, Communications Officer Diaz announced. Standard authentication request. Elena allowed herself a grim smile. Let's answer properly. Signal the fleet. Execute attack pattern Phoenix. The ordered formation of human ships suddenly scattered like startled birds, each vessel accelerating toward pre-designated targets around the platform's perimeter. At the same moment, the Defiance surged forward, its retrofitted engines pushing beyond safety parameters as it aimed directly for the central hub. Alarms blared as Council defense systems registered the threat. Laser batteries swiveled toward the approaching human ships, energy building for the first salvo. Evasive maneuvers, Elena commanded. All ships, deploy countermeasures. The space around the platform erupted in chaos. Human vessels released clouds of reflective particles that dispersed incoming laser fire, while faster attack craft darted between the Council's larger ships, disrupting their targeting systems. The Defiance shuddered as a partial hit scraped along its port side, but the shields held. Return fire, Elena ordered. Target their communication array first. I want them isolated. The battle unfolded with furious intensity. Council ships, technologically superior, but unprepared for the ferocity of the human assault, struggled to form a coherent defense. The element of surprise gave humanity's forces a critical advantage in those first minutes, long enough to establish bridgeheads on the platform's outer arms. Boarding teams away, Rahim reported, as shuttles detached from the larger vessels and streaked toward the platform. First team has breached the northern quadrant. Elena nodded, her focus shifting to the tactical display. The battle's momentum favored them for now, but Council reinforcements would arrive soon. Everything depended on the boarding team's ability to plant the fusion charges at key structural points. "Commander," Diaz called urgently, "we're receiving a priority transmission from the platform. It's being broadcast on all frequencies." The main screen flickered, revealing the imperious features of Admiral Yul Tra, Supreme Commander of the Council's Inner System Security Force. His scaled skin gleamed under the harsh lighting, compound eyes reflecting multiple images of the control room around him. "Commander Reyes." His voice resonated with artificial translation harmonics. "This pointless insurrection ends now. Your tactical position is untenable. Your forces are outnumbered. Surrender, and the Council may show mercy to your colonies." Elena's jaw tightened. Admiral Tra had been the architect of Earth's trade agreements, the strategist who had systematically dismantled human independence while speaking of partnership and mutual benefit. "The only surrender today will be yours, Admiral," she replied, her voice level despite the hatred coursing through her. "You misjudged humanity. We're not here to negotiate better terms. We're here to end your control permanently." Tra's mandibles clicked in what the translation algorithm interpreted as amusement. "Admirable defiance, Commander, but futile. Even as we speak, Council reinforcements approach from Venus. Your fleet will be crushed between my platform and the responding battle group." A warning flashed on Elena's tactical display, long-range sensors confirming Tra's claim. Council battleships had indeed changed course, abandoning their Venus patrol to intercept the human attack. "Time estimate for Council reinforcements?" Elena asked, maintaining eye contact with Tra. 27 minutes, Rahim answered quietly. "Then we have 26 minutes to complete our mission," Elena responded, cutting the connection to the Admiral. "Status of boarding teams?" "Northern and Eastern teams report resistance, but are proceeding to target locations. Southern team is pinned down near their entry point." Elena studied the tactical display, her mind racing through options. The original plan had called for all 3 fusion charges to detonate simultaneously, creating a cascade failure throughout the platform. With one team stalled, "Divert second-wave boarding craft to support the southern team," she decided. "And prepare a 4th boarding team. I'll lead it myself." Rahim's head snapped up. "Commander, that's not the plan. The plan assumed we'd have more time." Elena cut him off. "We need a direct strike on the command center. If we can neutralize Tra and his command staff, we can disable the platform's central targeting systems." "It's too risky," Rahim insisted. "The command center will be the most heavily defended section." "Which is why I'm going," Elena replied, already moving toward the shuttle bay. "The Defiance is yours until I return. Keep the Council ships occupied." Protests followed her, but Elena's mind was set. This wasn't just tactical necessity, it was personal reckoning. Admiral Tra represented everything the Council had done to humanity: the manipulative diplomacy, the resource theft disguised as trade, the casual cruelty of quarantining 50,000 people and leaving them to starve. The boarding shuttle launched from the Defiance, amid a screen of covering fire. Elena, clad in tactical armor and surrounded by a dozen of Haven's best fighters, studied the platform schematic one final time. "The command center is here." She indicated the central hub. Council design philosophy centralizes critical systems, environmental controls, weapons guidance, and communication nodes all feed through this location. If we can plant our charge here, even if the other teams fail, the platform becomes inoperable. The shuttle pilot navigated through the debris field created by the ongoing battle, using destroyed Council craft as cover. A particularly violent explosion rocked their approach as one of the human cruisers collided with a Council frigate, both vessels erupting in a sphere of superheated gas and shrapnel. "Approaching Docking Bay 6, the pilot announced. "Minimal activity detected. Looks like they've concentrated defense forces at the other breach points." "Perfect," Elena responded. "Set us down fast, and be ready for immediate extraction on my signal." The shuttle touched down in the nearly abandoned bay, the team deploying with practiced efficiency. 2 fighters secured the perimeter, while the others formed a protective formation around Elena and the demolition specialist carrying their fusion charge. 19 minutes until Council reinforcements arrive, Elena noted, checking her tactical display. "Move out." They encountered minimal resistance in the outer corridors, evidence that Tra had indeed committed most of his security forces to countering the other boarding teams. Those guards they did encounter were dispatched quickly and quietly, the team advancing methodically toward the platform's center. As they neared the command sector, however, the opposition stiffened. Council security forces established barricades at key junctions, forcing Elena's team to detour through maintenance tunnels and service corridors. 15 minutes, she murmured as they paused at a sealed bulkhead. "Engineering, can you bypass this door?" Before the specialist could answer, the bulkhead slid open, revealing a squad of Council guards. Energy weapons discharged in a blinding flash. 2 of Elena's fighters fell immediately, the rest diving for cover as she returned fire. The skirmish was brief, but costly. When the last Council guard fell, Elena's team had been reduced to 7, including herself and the demolition specialist. "We need to move faster," she urged, taking point as they continued toward the command center. "Rahim, status update?" "Northern team has planted their charge and is extracting." His voice came through her comm unit, punctuated by static as the platform's systems attempted to jam their communications. "Eastern team reports heavy resistance. Southern team has broken through but is still 3 sections away from their target." "Understood. We're approaching the command center now." The final corridor leading to Tra's command post was eerily quiet. No guards, no defensive emplacements, just an open path to a set of massive doors embossed with the Galaxy Council's insignia. "It's too easy," muttered one of the fighters. Elena nodded grimly. "He's waiting for us." With no alternative, they advanced cautiously toward the doors, which parted as they approached. Beyond lay the command center, a vast, circular chamber dominated by a holographic display of the battle raging outside. Council officers worked frantically at control stations surrounding the central platform where Admiral Tra stood, his tall figure silhouetted against the tactical projections. "Commander Reyes," he greeted her, turning slowly. "Right on schedule." Elena's weapon remained trained on the Admiral as her team secured the room, quickly subduing the unarmed Council officers. "You were expecting us?" "Of course," Tra replied, mandibles clicking in that unsettling approximation of a smile. "Your tactics are predictable. Humans always balance practical objectives with emotional satisfaction. Destroying this platform from a distance would be efficient, but confronting me personally satisfies your need for justice." "Plant the charge," Elena instructed the demolition specialist without taking her eyes off Tra. "Set it for remote detonation." As the specialist moved to comply, Tra gestured toward the holographic display. "Observe, Commander, your rebellion's final moments." The tactical projection shifted, showing the approaching Council battle group, now just 12 minutes from their position. But it was another element of the display that drew Elena's attention. The Martian and Lagrange strike forces were engaged in their own desperate battles. Council reinforcements, closing in on both positions. "Your species-defining trait isn't intelligence or adaptability," Tra continued, circling the command platform. Its obstinacy. The Council offered Earth protection, technological advancement, integration into the galactic community, and you responded with suspicion, then sabotage, and now open warfare. You offered subjugation disguised as partnership, Elena countered. You stripped our resources, monitored our communications, rationed our food, and expected gratitude. We brought order to a chaotic system. You brought tyranny to free worlds. The demolition specialist signaled completion of his task. Charges set, Commander. Ready for remote detonation on your command. Elena nodded acknowledgement. Then refocused on Tra. Your reinforcements won't arrive in time. Admiral, this platform and the others will be disabled. Humanity reclaims its independence today. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Tra's alien features. You would destroy this platform with yourself, still aboard? Another example of human irrationality. We have extraction planned, Elena replied, though she knew the window for escape was rapidly closing. With Council reinforcements approaching, the Defiance would need to retreat soon. But yes, I would sacrifice myself if necessary. That's something your Council has never understood about humanity. We value freedom more than survival. Tra studied her with those compound eyes, seeming to reassess his understanding of his opponent. Perhaps we have underestimated your species' commitment to self-determination. A fatal miscalculation, Elena agreed. She activated her comm unit. All teams, status report. Northern charge placed, team extracted, came the first response. Eastern charge placed, extraction in progress, followed the second. The third response crackled with weapons fire in the background. Southern team pinned down, unable to reach target. Elena's heart sank. Without all three charges, the platform would be damaged but not disabled. Council repair crews would have it operational again within days. New plan, she decided. All teams, extract immediately. Northern and Eastern charges will detonate as planned. She turned to her own team. Everyone back to the shuttle. Now. As her fighters began to withdraw, the demolition specialist hesitated. Commander, what about our charge? Elena's gaze remained fixed on Admiral Tra. I'll handle it. Go. When they had gone, only Elena and Tra remained in the command center, facing each other across the tactical display that showed the battle turning against humanity's forces. Council reinforcements were now 8 minutes away, close enough that human ships were beginning to break off their attack, preparing to retreat. Your rebellion dies here, Commander Reyes, Tra observed. Even if you destroy this platform, the Council will rebuild. We will hunt down your remaining ships. We will tighten control over your colonies. The penalty for insurrection is clear in Council law. Elena smiled thinly. You still don't understand. This isn't about winning a single battle. It's about showing humanity that resistance is possible. She raised her weapon, not at Tra, but at the platform's central control node. Every act of defiance inspires the next. The shot destroyed the targeting controls, sending sparks cascading across the command center. Emergency lighting activated as primary systems failed. What have you done? Tra demanded, his composure finally cracking. Disabled your ability to target my retreating fleet, Elena answered, backing toward the exit. The fusion charges will do the rest. Before she could reach the door, Tra moved with unexpected speed, interposing his towering form between Elena and escape. You will remain, Commander. If this platform falls, you fall with it. With Council reinforcements minutes away and her team already heading toward extraction, Elena made her choice. She raised the remote detonator, her thumb hovering over the activation switch. For Earth, she said quietly. For Mars. For Michael. She pressed the switch. The northern and eastern charges detonated simultaneously, the explosions reverberating through the platform structure. Alarms blared as compartments began to decompress. The command center shuddered, support beams groaning under sudden stress. Tra lunged for Elena, but she sidestepped, using his momentum to send him crashing into a control console. The tactical display flickered and died as power fluctuations swept through the platform. "This changes nothing," Tra snarled, regaining his footing. "The Council's resolve is unbreakable. So is humanity's," Elena countered, activating her personal charge. The device was meant as a last resort, a small explosive that could breach a hull or disable a pursuit vehicle. Now it would serve a greater purpose. She placed it directly on the platform's central power conduit, exposed by the earlier explosions. Tra's compound eyes widened as he realized her intent. "You doom yourself, Commander. I free my people. Admiral." Elena's voice carried absolute conviction. "The Council's dominance over humanity ends today." The detonation was blinding, a cascade of energy that overwhelmed the command center's already damaged systems. The central power conduit ruptured, triggering secondary explosions throughout the platform's core. In those final moments, as structural integrity failed and the void of space reached for them both, Elena thought of Michael, of Earth's blue skies before the Council came, of a future where humanity would determine its own destiny. Aboard the Defiance, Rahim watched in horror as the platform's central hub erupted in a sphere of expanding debris. The ship's sensors registered the catastrophic power failure spreading outward from the command center, disabling weapons, life support, and propulsion systems throughout the structure. "Commander Reyes," he called into the comm system. "Elena, respond." Only static answered. "Southern team reports their shuttle is away from the platform," Communications Officer Diaz reported, her voice strained. Commander Reyes wasn't aboard. The platform began to list, its stabilization systems failing as more explosions rippled through its superstructure. Council ships that had been defending it broke formation, retreating from the dying Colossus. "Council reinforcements still inbound," Tactical reported. 8 minutes out." Rahim stood frozen for a moment, grief warring with duty. Then his training reasserted itself. "Signal all ships. Mission accomplished. Withdraw to secondary rendezvous coordinates." As the human fleet disengaged, the tactical display updated with news from the other battle groups. Captain Gunner's forces had successfully disabled the Mars orbital platform, though at heavy cost. Admiral Chen's attack on the Lagrange Point Station had met stiffer resistance, but they too had accomplished their objective before withdrawing. All three of the Council's primary weapon platforms, the instruments of orbital dominance that had kept humanity subdued for a decade, were now disabled or destroyed. The cost had been grievous. 32 ships lost, thousands of fighters killed or wounded. And Elena Reyes, the commander who had transformed scattered resistance into coordinated rebellion, was gone. 3 days later, the combined human fleet regrouped in the shadow of Saturn, its rings providing cover from Council long-range sensors. The mood aboard the ships was complex, victory tempered by loss, pride in their accomplishment shadowed by uncertainty about what would follow. In the Defiance's conference room, the remaining resistance leaders gathered to assess their position and plan their next steps. Rahim, now acting commander of Earth's forces, stood before the tactical display showing the changed situation throughout the solar system. "The destruction of the orbital platforms has forced the Council to redistribute their fleet," he explained. "They've recalled ships from the outer system to defend their remaining infrastructure around Earth, Venus, and Mars. This has created opportunities we need to exploit quickly." Captain Gunner nodded. "The Martian resistance has already reclaimed 3 outlying domes. The quarantine zone has been breached. Medical supplies and food are reaching the northern sector." "What about Council ground forces?" asked Admiral Chen. "Still entrenched around their primary bases," Rahim answered. "But without orbital support, they're isolated. We can target their supply lines, communication centers, eventually force them to withdraw to defensible enclaves." The discussion continued, strategy building upon strategy as humanity's leaders planned the next phase of their rebellion. With the Council's orbital chokehold broken, possibilities emerged that had been unthinkable just days before. Reclaiming key infrastructure, establishing secure supply lines between colonies, rebuilding Earth's damaged ecosystems. Throughout the meeting, Elena's absence hung like a shadow over the proceedings. She had been the spark that ignited open rebellion, the voice that unified disparate factions, the tactician who conceived the audacious three-pronged strike. When the other leaders had departed, Rahim remained alone in the conference room, studying the tactical projections. The door slid open behind him, and Dr. Nakamura entered quietly. "The fleet is asking about Commander Reyes," she said without preamble. "They need to know what happened." Rahim nodded slowly. "Tell them the truth. She sacrificed herself to ensure the mission's success. Her actions disabled the platform's central systems, preventing it from targeting our retreating ships." "And what do we tell them about the future, about leadership?" "That we continue what Elena started," Rahim replied, his voice finding strength. "That one person may have ignited this rebellion, but all of humanity will carry it forward." Nakamura studied him for a moment. "You don't believe she survived?" The command center was at the epicenter of the explosion. No escape pods were launched. No emergency transmissions received. Rahim's voice caught. Elena knew the risks. She accepted them. In the days that followed, news of Operation Reckoning spread throughout the solar system. Human colonies that had remained neutral now declared for the resistance. Council propaganda channels, so effective for a decade, found their messages drowned out by humanity's renewed hope. The Council itself, faced with unexpected defeat, responded with a mixture of military repositioning and diplomatic overtures. Through intermediaries, they suggested negotiations, not as equals, but at least with formal recognition of humanity's grievances. Rahim rejected these initial approaches. "We negotiate when all Council military forces have withdrawn from Earth orbit and colonial territories," he informed the intermediaries. "We negotiate when all political prisoners are released. We negotiate as equals, not as subjects." 2 weeks after Operation Reckoning, as the resistance consolidated its gains and prepared for the next phase of conflict, a garbled transmission reached the Defiance from a mining outpost in the asteroid belt. "Unidentified vessel approaching," the message reported. "Council design but broadcasting human recognition codes. Single occupant claiming to be Commander Reyes." Rahim ordered immediate verification, dispatching reconnaissance ships to intercept. Hours later, visual confirmation arrived. A Council escape pod, heavily damaged but operational, with Elena Reyes at the controls. Her return was greeted with disbelief that transformed into celebration. Injured but alive. She related how she had fought her way out of the command center in the confusion following the initial explosions, reaching an emergency evacuation pod moments before the platform's final collapse. Admiral Traw had pursued, but been caught in a structural failure. His fate remained unknown. The pod's navigation systems had been damaged, sending Elena on a spiraling trajectory toward the asteroid belt rather than the fleet's rendezvous coordinates. For days, she had drifted, conserving oxygen and power until she could effect repairs sufficient to broadcast a distress signal. In the Defiance's medical bay, as doctors treated her injuries, Elena reunited with Rahim. "The mission?" she asked immediately, her voice weak but urgent. "Successful beyond our expectations," he assured her. "All 3 platforms destroyed. The Council's orbital dominance broken. Human colonies are reclaiming independence across the system." Relief softened her features. "And Mars? The quarantine zone?" "Breached within hours of the platform's destruction. Relief supplies reached the northern sector immediately." Rahim smiled. "Your brother sent a message. He's organizing the distribution of food and medicine. Says his hydroponic systems kept casualties to a minimum. Elena closed her eyes briefly, the last weight lifting from her shoulders. When she opened them again, her gaze was clear and forward-looking. And now, what's our next move? That, Rahim replied, is for you to decide, Commander. In the months that followed, the shape of a new solar system emerged from the ashes of Council dominance. Human colonies established a provisional government, the Solar Confederation, with representatives from Earth, Mars, and the outer settlements. Military coordination continued under Elena's command, driving Council forces from one stronghold after another until they controlled only isolated enclaves. The Council itself, facing unprecedented resistance, not just from humanity, but from other subjugated species emboldened by Earth's example, finally offered serious negotiations. When representatives arrived at the neutral meeting ground of Ceres, they found not supplicants but equals across the table. Elena, as humanity's chief negotiator, faced her counterparts with unwavering resolve. "We do not seek to join your council as subordinates," she informed them. "We demand recognition as an independent confederation, with full control of our system and resources." The negotiations stretched over weeks, each point contested, each concession hard-won. In the end, the Galaxy Council formally recognized the Solar Confederation's independence, established non-interference protocols, and agreed to reparations for a decade of exploitation. It was not total victory. Council enclaves remained on Venus and in Earth orbit as diplomatic missions. Their true purpose, clearly surveillance. Trade agreements still favored Council interests, though far less egregiously than before. But humanity had won what mattered most: self-determination. When the final accords were signed, Elena found herself standing alone on the observation deck of the human diplomatic vessel, watching as the Council representatives departed. The weight of leadership, of decisions that had cost lives, of compromises that fell short of perfect justice, pressed heavily upon her. Rahim joined her, offering a data tablet. The final casualty reports from Operation Reckoning and the subsequent conflicts. Elena took it, her eyes scanning the numbers that represented not statistics, but people. Fighters who had believed in the cause enough to die for it. "Too many," she said quietly. "Fewer than if we had continued under Council rule," Rahim reminded her. "Fewer than if the Council had been allowed to starve Mars, to extract Earth's remaining resources, to break humanity's spirit entirely." She nodded, acknowledging the truth in his words while still honoring the sacrifice each number represented. "What happens now? After fighting for so long, can we remember how to build?" "We're already building," Rahim replied. "The Mars hydroponics expansion has begun. Earth's remediation projects are clearing Council extraction damage. The Titan settlements are establishing independent research facilities instead of mining operations." Elena's gaze returned to the viewport, where Earth was visible as a distant blue crescent. Not pristine as it had been before the Council's arrival, but healing. Not free of challenges, but facing them on humanity's own terms. "Michael has asked me to join the hydroponics project on Mars," she said, after a long moment. "Says they need experienced leaders for the expansion into the southern hemisphere." Rahim studied her profile. "And will you go?" "I think, yes." She turned to face him fully. "The rebellion needed a commander. The war needed a general. But the peace needs builders, not fighters." "You could be both," he suggested. Elena shook her head, decision crystallizing. "Better to step aside while victory is fresh. Let new voices guide the Confederation's development." A faint smile touched her lips. "Besides, I've spent 10 years fighting. I'd like to create something for a change." 3 years later, Elena stood in the central dome of the Mars Southern Hydroponics Complex, surrounded by verdant growth, Crops flourished in precisely maintained conditions, producing food not just for Mars, but for export throughout the Solar Confederation. Michael worked beside her, directing a team of botanical engineers as they adjusted nutrient flows to a new experimental section. The administrative offices overlooked this green heart of the complex, but Elena spent little time there. She preferred to be among the plants, hands in the growing medium, contributing directly to the life-sustaining work. A communication alert drew her attention. Rahim's face appeared on her portable screen, older now, bearing the responsibility of his role on the Confederation's Defense Council. "Elena," he greeted her warmly. "How's the harvest looking?" "On schedule," she replied. "The new wheat variant is exceeding expectations. We'll increase shipments to Earth's northern settlements next month." He nodded approval. Then his expression grew more serious. "The Council envoy has requested another meeting. Their trade representatives are pushing for increased access to Jupiter's hydrogen reserves." Elena's brow furrowed. 3 years of independence had not ended the Galaxy Council's interest in the solar system's resources. Their approaches were more diplomatic now, cloaked in fair trade language rather than demands. But the underlying dynamic remained unchanged. "What does the Confederation Council recommend?" she asked. "Limited agreements, carefully monitored," Rahim answered. "We're stronger than we were, but still rebuilding. Open confrontation isn't in our interest." Elena nodded, recognizing the pragmatism in his assessment. The rebellion had won humanity freedom, but maintaining that freedom required balance between principle and practicality. "And the defense grid? How is the deployment progressing?" "The early warning systems around Neptune are operational. The Mars orbital defenses will be complete by next quarter." Rahim's expression lightened slightly. "We're better prepared than ever should the Council's intentions shift from diplomatic to military again." "Let's hope they've learned the same lesson we did," Elena replied. "That pushing too far invites consequences neither side can fully control." After the communication ended, Elena returned to the hydroponics bay, where Michael was instructing a group of new colonists, refugees from Earth regions still struggling with Council extraction damage. Their faces showed the familiar mix of hope and wariness, the caution of people who had learned to expect betrayal, but desperately wanted to believe in something better. "This complex feeds 200,000 people," Michael was explaining. "Every one of you will contribute to that mission. Every seedling you plant, every system you maintain, builds our independence." Elena watched from the periphery, content to observe rather than lead. The real victory of the rebellion wasn't the destroyed platforms or the signed accords. It was this: humans determining their own future, building communities based on mutual support rather than extraction, creating systems that sustained rather than exploited. As the tour continued deeper into the complex, Elena remained behind, her gaze drawn to the viewport, where Earth was visible as a bright star in Mars' night sky. The home world was healing slowly, its scars fading as extraction sites were reclaimed and council towers repurposed. The surveillance satellites were gone from orbit, replaced by Confederation communication and research stations. Not perfect, not without challenges or threats or difficult compromises, but free. Elena smiled faintly. The Galaxy Council had pushed too far, and humanity had pushed back, not just with weapons and tactics, but with the unbreakable determination to chart its own course among the stars. That determination would be needed again. She knew. The Council would test boundaries, seek advantages, probe for weaknesses. Independence required eternal vigilance. But for now, in this moment, watching new colonists learn to grow food on a world humans had claimed as their own, Elena allowed herself to feel something that had been absent during the long years of resistance. Peace. Not the peace of perfect safety or absolute victory, but the quieter peace of knowing that whatever came next, humanity would face it on its own terms. The Council had pushed too far. humanity had pushed back, and in that pushing, found not just its freedom, but its future.